I like to think I was a pretty happy kid. A bit bookish, perhaps, but happy. My attention rarely seemed to extend more than a foot beyond my own mind. I was always off in other worlds.
Okay. That one too?
Life was good. I had great parents, plenty of books, a somewhat overactive imagination, and enough curiosity to cause a severe global cat shortage. Socializing was kind of difficult for me. I didn't have that many friends, but the ones that I had meant a lot. My best friend was undoubtedly David Komar. He was something like a big brother to me. I didn't think anything of it when David lost his hair. David's sick, my parents told me, but that didn't mean much. Sickness to me meant nothing more than sniffles, and I'd gotten through those all right. How bad could cancer really be? But David's sniffles lasted for 4 years, and I saw David less and less as he spent more time in the hospital. The smiling face I'd once looked up to began to look weaker, more strained. 4 years passed like this. 4 years of growing distant. 4 years of pain. Whatever it was pulling him down, he was pushing back against it. Even though I didn't really understand what he was going through, I admired his strength. Even though he'd grown thin and pale, he continued to be the star baseball player on his team, and he still laughed, sang along to the Spice Girls. He seemed normal to me. It's remarkable, the capacity for children to adapt. David had been bald and regularly visiting the hospital for so long that it just became a new normal, for me at least. I just accepted it as something that he did, just as someone might bake or play an instrument. In September of 2001, while the teachers at school were still mourning the 9/11 attacks, my world was shaken in a different way. David had passed on, killed in his battle with cancer. He was 8.5 years old. I doubt it was much of a surprise for the adults. He'd been sick for half his life, after all. But for me, just on the cusp of turning 7, it was honestly a bit more confusing than it was sad. I kept thinking, how can he be gone if he was just here? Where did he go? Why did this happen to him? People kept saying platitudes like everything happens for a reason, but try as I might, I couldn't find any reason worth killing an innocent child. While I struggled to make sense of everything, I inherited David's baseball bat, an afterimage that remains after a bright light has been extinguished. Its battered and metal surface is a testament to David's existence. Every nick and scrape seemed to me like David calling out from within, I was here. I swore to myself that I would become a testament as well, that I would keep his bat in the corner of my bedroom so that I would see it every night, so that I could keep his memory alive. Years passed. I became an adult, and the child that I'd been grew as dead as David. Gradually, my sense of purpose in this world started to slip away, leaving only questions and terror in its place. Everything appeared to me as an overwhelming bombardment devoid of all purpose. By the time I was in high school, I didn't really see the point in living. Where I once saw optimism and hope, the world gradually began to appear darker, like a meaningless cascade of random occurrences. The world felt shallow and dull. I would eventually be diagnosed with severe depression. But not before I tried to take my own life. I've been on medication for depression for about a year now. But I've found that rather than eliminating my problems, it's merely allowed me to function well enough to develop the tools that I need to help myself. Although I'd grown distant from the church after my years of doubt, I found myself being drawn back toward the religion of my youth. Not out of a sense of salvation for myself. I was allured by the possibility of a greater meaning to the things that happen in this life. Stepping within the walls of a church, I feel as if I'm entering another world. This world, built atop the world of bricks and mortar, keeps the uncertainty of chaos at a distance. All that confuses and overwhelms me is suddenly seen through a window stained with the image of a purpose. I also found myself being drawn toward a church of different sorts. After all, it helps to give my fears a face, or 20. I've always liked escaping into a world of imagination. Everything makes sense there. I only started playing Dungeons & Dragons in university, but I felt like I was a natural fit. My mind was always off in other worlds, and now I had tools to help me give them shape. Just as religion helps to create a cohesive narrative out of the chaos of life, Dungeons & Dragons takes a chaotic roll of the die and turns it into stories. It turns it into laughter, friendships, excitement, tragedy. The roll of the die is plain to see, and the rules are all written down. In the other world, the real world, this die is only seen through the bitter lens of human suffering. What I've realized is that fantasy is real when it's shared between the people around the gaming table. Faith is real when it's shared between the pews and the altars. In many ways, the past is no more real than a world of fantasy or the heightened world of faith. The past, memory, it's made real when it's told, when it's actively remembered. Memory's a fickle thing. It can neither be seen, touched, heard, nor measured, but it can be expressed. And that's when I realized life isn't without a purpose. The stories that we make can be the purpose. Despite the fears of loss and abandonment that I've lived my whole life with, life is still worth living. Without being alive, the world of faith couldn't exist. All of the worlds that I create through my imagination would cease to be. All of the memories that I carry with me would die. What I've realized is that the chaotic nature of reality isn't a limitation. It's the foundation on which you can build any world you want.